So that's the kind of work that got summarized in this, that's the kind of trend that got summarized in this book. We're looking at the forces that are trying to break India's identity psychologically, India's continuity of history, India's regional geographical commonalities and continuities. And these forces are in America, in Europe, and in India. All these places. Some of them are church-based, some of them are secular left-wing think tanks who think they're doing human rights work. Some are government agencies, some are academic scholars, and some are just freelancers who are making a quick buck because there's money to be, you can get grants for this kind of work. Yeah. And one of the things we discovered is that in the United States, the American left fights the right. That's what they polarize. The left is always critical of the right of center people. But in India, they're collaborating because they have a common enemy. It's a very interesting thing. So a lot of people have named in this book are leftists in the United States, Indian leftists working in the United States, who have NGO links in India, or they link with some such organization that is considered to be a problem by me in this book. And they are at the same time positioning themselves for their credibility as a leftist. They are positioning themselves by always criticizing the Christian right in the United States. But the projects they're doing in India are often in alignment with Indian Christianity. So the left and right come together in India while they're separate, competing, conflicting nexuses overseas. Very interesting. Also, there's a Islam versus Christianity clash going on. But in many parts of India, they're working together. Another interesting thing. Yeah. So you'll find Christians working with Maoists. Contradiction in the West, but in India they're working together. Maoists working with ISI-type linked people or Islamic forces. So they have a common enemy, therefore they are collaborating. So one of the things the book does is it puts the spotlight on this issue. And by naming the people in the US or Europe who are involved, it puts them on the defensive. Because now they are hypocrites. It shows they're hypocrites. Because right here they're claiming to be Marxists and leftists, and they're attacking the Christian right, but they're actually being co-opted by the same Christian right to do the dirty work in India. A lot of the dirty work on behalf of the church is being done by left-wing NGO-type people in India. I got a letter from one of them, very defensive and very bit scared, and he wanted to make sure that I'm not coming after him and all that, but I've already named him enough in the book. So the purpose is to heighten awareness about this sort of hypocrisy, which continues. So this kind of work continued since many years during the past decade, and then I decided that I need, in order to organize all this, I should focus on some aspect because of thousands of pages, and get me a co-author, and that's when I got Arvindan, my co-author, on board, and he started working for me on this project. Initially not as a co-author, but later I made him a co-author. But initially, as somebody who would go track down various leads, I would send him, this organization from the US is sending money there to go find out what they're doing. And he also translated their pamphlets, and he could record things and tell me what they're up to. So he was data gathering and researcher and fact finder, and then he, gradually, I felt he's on the same wavelength, and I need younger people to take over my work. So we agreed that he'd be a co-author, and also then he can continue with this even beyond the book. So that was a very big help, because when people question who am I, what's my authority, what's my what's my level of knowledge on the ground, I can always say I have a co-author who's on the ground. He lives in Kanyakumari district, a small village, and that Kanyakumari district, by the way, is more than 50% Christian now. This happened in the last 10 years. It's a very sacred Hindu place, but it is more than 50% Christian. So the stories we're telling you are not based on some guy sitting and Googling. These are on the ground data that we gather. Facts that we can substantiate and we can defend. So one of the outcomes, one of the conclusions that we've reached is that a lot of minorities in India should not be called minorities anymore, because they are really a branch office of a majority, global majority. So for instance, if you look at McDonald's as a global entity, it's not a minority business, it's a huge business. But if one little restaurant is running in India somewhere, it may have only 20 employees. And if you did not know that it is part of this big global McDonald's, if you thought it's independent, then you may think it's minority. But since you know that this is, they get their money, they get their strategy, their products, their lobbying, their legal help, their marketing help from this global entity, you don't think it's a minority enterprise, even though it has only 20 employees. If you use the same argument, the Baptist church as an example, or any of the big churches, are a huge global, like McDonald's kind of enterprise. And every Baptist church in Nagaland is like a McDonald's outlet. So you cannot really classify them as a minority, because they are part of a global majority. And they are not the people who lack resources or lack sophistication. In fact, they are the ones who got the resources more than Hindus in the global forums. They are the ones who lobby all over the world, and they have lawyers, and they have people who go to UN and US Congress. They are well represented. Their side of the story is more than well represented. So in terms of power or numbers or money, they're not a minority. So we are challenging that, the book is challenging that we should re-examine the definition of who is a minority. And just numerical minority alone within the Indian context does not qualify in my book, because if we live in an age of globalization, and the whole worldwide enterprise has to be evaluated, and even though we should say the Baptist church all over the world is a minority enterprise. We have to either do that, or they're not a minority enterprise, which means all their assets, all their presence has to be treated as not a minority. So, in this way, we have several challenges, and those of you who've gone to the website www.breakingindia.com, we have something called 6 challenges or 6 provocations or something. This minority business is one of those 6, so you can read that. I also would urge you to go there and look at the videos. We have several events, like this event we'll edit and put up the video. So we've done this. I had a debate with a Christian pastor at Princeton University, Reverend Thompson, from the Methodist Church. He's from Tamil Nadu. They thought that, okay, they asked me, do you want to have a neutral discussant, an opposing discussant, or just the floor to yourself? I said, I'd love to have an opposing discussant. And so they figured, they took a wife, and they thought, what could be better than a Christian, pastor, Indian, from Tamil Nadu? Wow. So they selected him. And you can see for yourself when you watch the video what happened. It's a lot of fun. So, I want to make clear that this book and my position is not anti-Christian or pro-Hindu. It's not a Hindu versus Christian issue. It's pro-India. It's more about the country and its civilization. And it looks at hostile forces elsewhere that are trying to appropriate minorities in India and undermine India's unity and integrity, whoever these hostile forces may happen to be. Yeah? So that is the purpose of this. And I found that a reaction, there's some interesting reactions to this book I will tell you about, and then we'll throw it open for questions. One of the interesting reactions is that a lot of American Christians who are sort of liberal, open-minded, free-thinking, and not sort of, very radical kind of fundamentalists, they actually sympathize with what I'm saying, and they don't want Christianity as they understand it to be doing these things. They're embarrassed. I have Christian friends who've come to me and said, we'll stop giving this money to World Vision or here, there, wherever we're giving, because we have no idea they're doing these kind of things. And now that we know what they're doing, this is not good Christianity. This is not our idea of Christianity. We don't think Christianity should be doing all this. So that's an interesting point. We also discovered that a lot of middlemen are making tons of money in this. People getting grants in India from the West to save people and do this bad work, and they are measured on how many people they've converted. So they go and twist somebody's arm and do whatever it takes to get somebody's signature that he's converted. Some of that's a sham also. So a lot of corruption goes on, and a lot of people driving around in BMWs in rural India who get their money from here. and claiming to be sort of helping the poor. So there's a corruption of this flow. Swami Dayananda Saraswati said that's very good for us, because it means that all that money is not really being used for conversion, because it's being siphoned off. So Indian corruption has a good thing also about it. If our opponents are corrupt, then they're not effectively using all their funding where they intend to. Also pointed out is that there's a Christian caste system in India. It's not only a Hindu problem, it's also a Christian problem. And there's an Islamic caste system, the Ashraf and Ajlaf, they are an Islamic caste system. Sikhs have a caste system also. So it's not appropriate to say Hinduism equals caste and conversion to Christianity equals solution. It's not Hindu problem, Christian solution. That doesn't work. There's a lot of information we have on that issue. And there's also Christian churches are segregated right here in the United States. So before one can wag one's finger and say, we're going to solve your problem, the point is we got the problem here. Hispanics have different churches, blacks have different churches, whites have different churches, and Koreans have different churches, Indians have different churches, and Malayali Indians, Christians have different churches, and Andhra Indians, Telugu churches. This is very true. So, this business of integration, blah, 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 it's easier to sermonize than to implement it, even within ourselves. And then when you go to countries which are third world countries, former colonized countries that have Christianized fully, like Philippines or Mexico, they have huge social problems, human rights problems. And you can't say it's because of Hinduism causing it. There's no. So you have to also be well informed to take on the challenges, the issues, the problems that people throw at us. And this book will help you do that. I will close with the statement that I'm looking for people to read, react, comment, be vocal, agree, disagree, whatever you want to, but after being informed about it. And this is going to begin a long-term process of shifting the discourse about Dharma on a number of matters. And those of you who would like to be, I would like to request everybody's email address. So if you can write down your email address, because I like to put you on my list. I write a lot on Huffington Post and various other places I'm writing books and giving talks. I like to keep you informed of what I do, so I would love to get in touch with you. And if there are people who are interested in, people often say, how can we help? If there are people of that kind, I have a lot of work we need done. Would love to have any help. Thank you so much.